So the big question to start off is, what is humanities? And humanities, in the sense of, well, all these things in this picture here, but the big question is, how do we apply what this humanities is and what it entails, and how do we apply that to film? And so that's what this week's all about, to get you into. And really, so if you look at humanities, and there's lots of classes and lots of different studies, lots of things you're interested in, I'm sure, or majoring in, that is in the realm and the umbrella of humanities. The large picture, humanities can be described as the study of how people process and document the human experience. As easy as that. Think of in past. Think of cave drawings. Think of stories by Aristotle, different philosophies. Think of music of the past. And then bring it up to the 21st century and think of ways that we document the human experience today, again through music. Film is the easy one, but think of all other parts of our life that we use to tell the human story. And that's really what it is. Since humans have been able to, we have used philosophy, literature, religion, art, music, history, language, the name goes on, to understand and record our world, the human story in the world around us. These modes of expression have become some of the subjects that traditionally fall into the humanities umbrella. So the study of how people process and document the human experience is the heart of this whole story. And knowledge of records of human experience gives us, and all of us, individuals, humans, everybody, the opportunity to feel a sense of connection, not only to those who have come before us, not even like as a historian of myself, not to look at just the past and the people connect to the past, but also a way to empathize and connect with people in our own communities, in our own state, in California, in all of the United States, and the world beyond that. With this world becoming more and more connected, but also seemingly more and more divided, if you look around us and what's been going on in the last couple days. Humanities is documenting this in so many different ways. Think of how the news is portraying it. Think about music coming out and stories. And you're going to see movies and all these things. This is all humanities acting out how our lives are and trying to get us, persuading us one way or another to connect in a certain direction and a certain way. So the president, I don't know if you could read this, but the president of Duke University said that humanities is a somewhat academic term. But if I ask you if you enjoy reading or going to the movies or listening to music, everyday life is full of humanities. Humanities is a very academic term, but think of other ways that you can express that. And everything that you're interested in arts, in literature, in sports even. Think of parts of our lives and how it's documented and how it connects us to other people and to help connect to the past and understand who we are and identity. That's what this is all about. So then how do we connect humanities to other parts of our lives, right? And the things that you're studying in school, how do we use that to more specifically connect to the study of film? So studying film and humanities to understand popular memory, all right? Memory of, collective memory of the people, in this case, American films and then Hollywood films. We'd like to be like archaeologists, okay? What do archaeologists do? Well, they go to a place and they can dig into the ground and they can see the story of the people that live there, right? There might be fields on top of crops or something, but you dig down and you'll see whole civilizations to be unearthed. And you could tell where people lived and where they worshipped and where they ate and maybe where they fought and died or all these things. And we're going to look at humanities and film a similar way, like archaeologists, maybe to study paintings on walls or have different, study different aspects of the very past. And we're like archaeologists, we're going to look at film in two types of phases, okay? So one is the popular memory phase. Okay, the popular memory phase on one hand, and number two, a historical analysis phase on the other. I'm going to break this down, but this is going to be our scope for this whole semester of how to use humanities and the different things that you're interested in, whether it's psychology or history or philosophy or humanities itself or other types of studies. We're going to bring those in through these frames and these phases to understand how to, like archaeologists, dig in the film and grab information so we can analyze it, study it, and look at the human story through it. Okay, so the very first one, the popular memory phase, is very easily the very first. There's only 2 points to this. Popular memory phase, number one, who were the filmmakers and what influenced them to adopt the approaches they took? From the very earliest film to movies just coming out in Hollywood, is always a good question to think, wow, this is an interesting approach to this film. Why did the filmmakers and all the money and everything it took to make this movie, what influenced them to not only choose this movie, but also adopt the approaches that they took to make this movie the way it is? Why? They had many choices throughout this whole thing, and they chose this, this, and this. Why? So that's always a question to have. Why are filmmakers, when they're making this film, choosing to do what they're doing to produce what they're making? Okay. Second one is then they're always in the forefront is who is the audience? Who was the audience for this film? When was it first made, and how was it accepted to the contemporary audiences of its time? So who were the audiences that this film was for whom these films were originally produced, and what contemporary frame of reference influenced how the audience made sense of the film? So what's the framework? What's the lens that the audience is seeing when they see this movie? I'll give you an example. Rocky Horror Picture Show. When that came out, it was banned in a lot of theaters, a lot of stuff going on. And now there's whole subgenres that dress up and do this whole thing, and you can go watch it. Even in Red Bluff, California, they have a showing, and it's a whole different audience than when it was originally even coming out. So there's lots of films like that. And think of films that we're going to see early on. Think of these early films when they first come onto the screen, and they've never seen it before, and there's no sound, or there's a whole orchestra playing. And what's the audience thinking? How does that sort of reflect their lives and what they're seeing in their lives? And how does that change for us today? So how the audience makes sense of a film that they're seeing is this huge part of this story. And it's a way for us to think, okay, look at me in the 21st century sitting here watching this movie. But if I was to be able to go back 100 years when this movie first came out, the first one we're going to see, City Lights with Charlie Chaplin, what was the original audience thinking, and how was this relating to their current lives? Those are the kind of questions we're going to look at. And this all comes into the popular memory phase. On one side, what are the filmmakers thinking and approaches they're taking to make the movie? On the other hand, how is it being received? What are the audience's reflection and thoughts of this movie being produced? Those both are one phase, the popular memory phase. The second area to go through, historical analysis phase. And this has 4 different parts, and there's 4 different frameworks to put in context a historical analysis, to be real archaeologists and use film to dig in and understand. The first one is how the film that you're looking at, whether it's a short clip or a full-on movie or a documentary, how it is representing history. So framework number 1, a moving image document of a representation of history. Does it tell a historical story? This might be a documentary film or interpret a historic period event. Think of the movie Troy with Brad Pitt that came out, kind of loosely following Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey and some stories that we think of when we think of ancient Greece, but is very Hollywood. So that's representation of history loosely, but you can look into it, and it might even tell more about the culture of the time that it was made than the past. That's a whole other story. But historical analysis phase number 1, does it represent history? Is there a historical representation in telling the story? Second one is evidence for social cultural values of the audience. Okay, a moving image, a movie, a document of evidence for social cultural history. Does a film that is made, was it made for a mass audience? And does it evoke certain social or cultural values of the audience to which the producers are trying to appeal? That is, are they trying to sell the audience to have certain values. When we get to Casablanca and we get to movies of the 40s, we'll see that for sure. But through even today, if you're looking at a movie, what are the values that they're trying to evoke? What are the main values that are trying to be thrown here? What are the social contexts that the producers and the movie makers are trying to connect with the audience or help shift the audience to think? And that shows a lot about the society as well. What cultural values are being produced and shown and highlighted in a movie or show or commercial or whatever. Third framework is historical fact, actual footage. A moving image document is evidence for historical fact. Does the film that's provided actual footage, actual historical events being shown in the camera? Think of some of the footage from the Vietnam era, where it showed very firsthand actual footage of what's happening, or on the beaches of Normandy in World War II. So this is very contemporary. Obviously, we don't have actual footage from the medieval times or whatever, what have you, but this is something in the 20th century we can start really looking at, how actual footage is used and how it's manipulated. So you see a lot of that too, but how does that play, and how does that play a role as actual footage of a historical event is taking place in front of a camera? And we'll see that movies are being made even as early as the 1940s, where they use a combination of actual footage, but then put it within a movie and change the story a little bit. So you're seeing actual footage, but you're interpreting it how the movie makers want you to interpret it. Framework number 4, cinematography, evolution. A moving image document of evidence of history of film itself and television. Questions about films themselves, dealing with cinematography. Some of you might be interested in going into film and getting into movies, and how the evolution, the art of movie making itself evolves over time. And evolves, I mean, very easily. We're going to look at that from silent film to talkies, or black and white film to color, different color film. But there's a lot of other aspects of that as well, and how these play together. And we'll look at how that evolves into different genres and themes as this class goes on. But those are the biggest 2 important frameworks. So you have on one side, popular memory phase, on the other side, a historical analysis phase. And these are just bite-sized ways to use humanities and to use it to shift and sift through the film to understand different parts of the human story that the film is illuminating. So we're going to use this week by week in all genres and types of film, and I hope that you start to do it in your day-to-day lives as you watch movies, TV shows, even commercials between sports breaks or on the news or whatever, as you're watching the news even, and think about how these aspects of humanities is being portrayed as you're watching it through your TV screen.